Hello students, welcome back. We have section 4, derivative rules for undetermined functions. I'm a little bit torn here whether to cover it or not because this may be a bit too deep for 1325. For Calculus 1, which is trigonometry based, and that's for STEM students, yeah, for that course this is going to be necessary, but for this course, I don't know. I may end up skipping it, but for now, let's try to cover it. Here are some examples associated to using the derivative rules without the algebraic expressions. Instead, we have to use these derivative values. How do I do that? Well, if you take the derivative of h, that's 5f prime of x minus 4g prime of x, right? Like this. And then plug in x equal to 2. And we know f prime of 2 and g prime of 2. The problem gave us all that. Plug in all those numbers and do your computation. There you go. It's that simple. Too simple? Maybe that's because the problem was too simple. How about this? What is h prime of x? Now, this one requires a bit of a challenge. That's f prime of x, g of x, plus f of x, g prime of x, isn't it? The reason, the product rule. Now, if you're interested in h prime of 2, okay, h prime of 2. Now, do we know all these values? F prime of 2, g of 2, f of 2, g prime of 2? Yes, we do. So plug in all those in, and we get the answer. Not as simple as before, but pretty good. And the next problem, well, it's just a quotient rule. There you go, quotient rule, and then plug in x equals to 2, and we know all those values. Quotient rule will require bigger fonts so that you can read better. Okay, how about the next problem here? This 2 is a quotient rule, but this will require something different. So denominator squared, and then here u prime is this g prime, and then v is 1 plus f of x minus u, and then v prime, derivative of the denominator. This plus 1 goes away, and we just get f prime of x. And then, if you're interested in h prime of 2, well, you can plug in x equals to 2 to all these, and then look up all those values. What is f of 2? What is g of 2? What is f prime of 2? What is g prime of 2? You know all those, and then plug in and do your computation. You're going to get the answer. You're going to get -3/2. Make sense? Final expression. A bit bigger challenge. How do you handle that? I'm not going to complete this problem for you. I'll stop halfway through. First, we have to use the quotient rule, right? The denominator squared. And then we have to use u prime v minus u v prime. What do you have here and also there? Well, that's the derivative of the numerator, and the numerator is x squared times g of x, so that's another product rule. 2x g of x plus x squared g prime of x. How about this? The derivative of denominator. Oh, that's a bit easier. We don't have product. We just have addition. So 1 plus f prime of x. And you can plug in x equal to 2 and look up those values. Anyway, I'm going to stop here. Here's another type of problem. This time I gave you f of x values for x value 1, 2, 3. So f of 1, f of 2, f of 3 values are here. For instance, if f of 2 is, can you find out from here? F of 2 is 1 from this table. And what is f prime of 3 from this table? Can you find it? F prime is this column, x value is 7. X value is 3, so in that case this value is 7. What is it? It's 2. G prime of 2 is 7, and so on. Does it make sense? Does this table make sense? What is g prime of 3? That's 9 right here. Make sense? Okay. So much for reading this table. Now, find out u prime of 1. How do you do that? U is f of g of x. Looks like you have to use a chain rule. U prime of x is f prime of inside stay the same and derivative of the inside. That's it, isn't it? Therefore, u prime of 1 is f prime of g of 1 times g prime of 1. Alright? Now, what is g prime of 1? Look up the table. That's 6. Now, what is f prime of g of 1? Well, g of 1 first. G of 1 is 2. So you get f prime of 2 times g prime of 1. And what is f prime of 2? That's 5, isn't it? 5 times 6, that's 30. A little bit more complicated because the chain rule is involved here, but you can do this with this table. Does it make sense? Here's a chain rule. Plug in x equals 1, and inside is 2. Look up all those values. We have 5 times 6. Okay, how about the next problem here? V prime of x is g prime of inside never changes times the derivative of the inside. Is that clear? That's the chain rule. And then v prime of 1 is g prime of f of 1 because I'm plugging in x equals 1, and then f prime of 1. Okay, what is f prime of 1? Look up the table. That's 4. And what is f of 1? That's 3, isn't it? So you get g prime of 3 times f prime of 1 is 4. And what is g prime of 3? g prime of 3, we have 9 times 4, so that's 36. Here's the answer key. We have 2 more problems, but I'm going to leave those to you. They're all about chain rule. Okay, the last type, we have a graph, and then we have to answer these questions. Okay, all right. Okay, P is product f times g, Q is quotient f over g, U is composite function f of g, and V is composite g of f. What is P prime of 2? Is that clear? That's coming from the product rule. And now I want P prime of 2. Okay, P prime of 2. So far so good, but here is now a significant problem. What are these? You have to answer these by looking at the graph. Good luck. What is g of 2? That's a blue graph, and g of 2 is the y-coordinate value. That's the function value. Right here, when x equals to 2, y-coordinate value is 2. So this value is 2. So this quantity is, now that's 2. Now how about f of 2? When x equals to 2, function value here is 3. So that's 3. Is that clear so far? G of 2, from the blue graph, we got 2. And f of 2, from this red graph, I got y equals to 3. Okay, now a little bit harder question. What is f prime of 2? The slope. Look at the red graph, and x equals to 2. Right here, what's the slope? Slope of this horizontal line, that's 0. Is that clear? For the derivative, you have to look at the slope. Now, g prime of 2, right here, what's the slope? Well, this is a line segment, so the slope is 1/2. So we have this computation to do. The answer is 3/2. So the product rule, that's no big deal. Plugging in the number, that's no big deal. Now reading the graph, oh, that is a big deal. The quotient rule, I'll leave that to you. Now let's go to the chain rule here. U prime of 2. How do you handle that? Well, there you go. U prime of x is f prime of g of x, inside stays the same, times g prime of x. Therefore, u prime of 2 is f prime of g of 2 times g prime of 2. Now, what are g of 2? What are g prime of 2? And what is f prime of g prime of 2? You can do it like this, and you can do this by reading the graph. It turns out 0. I'm going to leave the details to students.